When we teach the Bible well, properly, rigorously, I think the points of contact with our culture just automatically follow. I don't think you need to have a PhD in cultural studies to be able to preach the Bible well. I think if you take God's word seriously, proclaim Him from the text, the cultural points of connections will come automatically.
Well, I think the first thing to do is to work out what the Bible is saying, what the text means. And to do that, you do need to bear in mind the culture it was written in. And then you begin to think, well, how was that culture similar to the culture that I'm preaching into? And there'll be points of similarity, and there'll be points of difference.
The Bible is always going to have something to say to the culture because God is timeless, eternal. And once we get the message of the Bible properly, we'll see that it says exactly what we need to hear.
And so you take the timeless message, which is about God, which is about humanity, which is about salvation, and then you apply it to the lies or the truths that we believe or that we're led to believe that are present in our culture as well.
So the thrilling thing, isn't it, about the Bible is that we always talk about context, but the thrilling thing is that God never spoke into an historical vacuum. He always spoke to a time and a place and a people, and that's what makes expository Bible teaching possible. If it wasn't for that, we could not, with any confidence, expound and apply the text contextually, working it through, transpositioning to our day and generation. We couldn't do that if that were not the case. So there's a sense in which I'm always looking just to understand what is the harmony of this passage, what was God originally saying, and I want to say what He said because that's what He's still saying. That's the way that works.
There is a historical distance between us in the 21st century where we are and then the time the Bible was written and to the first recipients. So one gets to know, it's important to understand the circumstance, the situations of the people that it was written. That way we get to understand their mindset. Words are dynamic and they lose their meaning over time. They change over time. But what did it mean to them? What was their situation? What was the context? What was the reason? What were the situations they were facing? How similar would they be? Because it's important. If you don't, you will be applying wrongly. Such a context helps one to understand the text clearly and apply it appropriately and relevantly today.
God has spoken in time and space, and I want to try and faithfully lift the burden of that passage and help people to hear it today.
We need to try and understand what the human authors are communicating in their context in order to know how appropriately to apply the principles that come out from whatever they're teaching into the modern world, the context in which we find ourselves.
We need to ask initially, what was this text intended to say to its first readers? And actually, when I answer that question, I understand something of the author's intended purpose for the text. And then I begin to see how I am like the first readers and how the message of the text speaks to me really through them.
And what I'm trying to do is to work out what was the original writer trying to say. He's writing for a reason to particular people at a particular time. I'm trying to work out what is the point of it. What's he trying to say to them then? And once I can work that out and summarize it in a sentence or two, then I've begun to work out what's the equivalent punch for us today. That's going to be the message.
The more I found, the more I get into the text and what is the message of this text for those people then, the clearer I am on that, the easier I have found the step to, so what is this saying for us today?
There was an original reason why this is written. So the Bible never just throws truths in the air. It puts, as it were, ammunition into a particular part of the Bible and aims that truth into a situation. So try and work out what was the situation and what is this writer saying to those people then. That will get you a message. So many preachers don't have a message, they just throw truths in the air. But what's the punch of the passage? That will help you preach.